Hi everyone, welcome to the YIJ paper writing competition Q&A session. It's not going to be a long session. I'm just going to go through the questions that you guys have emailed us and spoke to us about. So I'll just read out the questions and then I'll give you the answers to your questions. Question number one is the project uses this project, I'm assuming your project, uses experimental design. Does the writing format refer exactly to the module given? The answer to that question is the module is more or less a guideline. You don't have to follow exactly the guideline as long as it follows a particular format, a structure, then we're okay. But make sure you have most of the components that are mentioned in the modules. Make sure you have most of them. So I do not know your paper. Maybe some of the components may not be relevant. So if it is not relevant, don't include. Only include what is relevant, because as I said, your paper has to be very concise. There's another question of what is the criteria for the best article, right? I think this question is similar questions like this on judging criteria and stuff like that. So let me answer all that questions together. Basically, what the judges will be looking for is number one, of course, your language has to be good. Your ability to communicate in a written format has to be good, right? Your grammar, your English, your spelling errors, and all that. Of course, the judges will be looking at all these matters, and then they will also look at the logical flow of your paper. So let's say you make a statement, and then you follow it on with another statement and another statement. It has to flow. The questions, the statements that you make in your paper, or the sentence, from sentence 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, it has to flow in a logical process. So you cannot have suddenly you talk about something and all of a sudden you talk about something else, right? So then you have what is called a logical break. So you should not have logical breaks. If there is a need for logical breaks, normally in a lot of papers, what they do is they divide their papers into sections. So that is where there is a quote unquote logical break, so to speak, where you have sections, right? So then the reader will know that, okay, this section is talking about A, this section is talking about B, this section is talking about C. Whereas if you don't have those sections, then you're suddenly talking about A, then all of a sudden you're talking about B, and then you're talking about A again. So there is you have a break in the flow. So you must make sure that you don't have flow in your paper. One way to look at it is you are telling a story, so it has to follow a storyline, so to speak. The beginning, the center in which you explain, and then you conclude at the end. So that's one way to kind of organize your thoughts, right? And of course, this is an academic paper, writing competitions. So you have to have your problem statement, right? You have to have your solution, your proposed solution, and then you have to then support your solution with evidences. So it could be evidences based on an experiment that you did, or based on questionnaires that you have run, or based on literature, whatever not. So your solution has to be backed up, right, by any one of this, right? So that is very, very important, right? And then you need to conclude, right? Your conclude goes back to the problem statement or the hypothesis, depending on the type of paper that you are working on, right? So if it's an experimental scientific paper, then you have to have a hypothesis, and then your conclusion must link to your problem statement and your hypothesis. So this is the flow. So generally, this is the flow. Please look at all the modules, read all the modules. We have all the modules that has been provided to you. So if you read all the modules, all the different type of papers, you would know, right? Most of these things are mentioned there. So please go through the modules and you'll be able to answer those. Some of the questions that you have and some of the questions that you also gave us, right? The maximum number of words. Okay, so your paper minimum number of words is 1,000. Maximum is 3,000. doesn't include abstracts and reference. So without the abstract and the reference, it has to be between 1,000 minimum and 3,000 maximum, right? So again, keep your paper as concise as possible, and we recommend, and that's one of the reason why we recommend that you only look at one problem and then talk about only one solution, right? There may be a lot of solutions, so if you really have 3 or 4 solutions for one problem, write 3 or 4 papers, right? If you still want to write 2 or 3 papers, do let us know. We can still accept, right? But uh, my suggestion, right, again, is a suggestion to make sure that you fall within the 3,000 meter parameter, 3,000 words parameter. Focus on only one solution, one problem, one solution, right? So keep it tight. Keep your arguments tight as possible, right? What do you expect to see most in our project writing, right? So I guess judges, they want to see your number one is your ability to identify a problem, your ability to come up with a solution which is innovative and different, and your ability to communicate your solution, your problem that you identified and your solution. How well are you able to communicate, right? At the end of the day, that's very, very important, right? Not only in universities as you're a student, but also when you go into working life. Uh, Even though you have a lot of knowledge, you're unable to communicate your ideas, then you lose out, right? So this take this as a way to practice your ability to communicate your what is in your mind in a very structured and disciplined way. Discipline means you don't make any statement without proof, right? So that's important. So that's, I think there was another question, say, why are you running this competition? That is the reason, right? We want you to be able to come up with ideas and be able to communicate those ideas in a disciplined academic style writing format. So if you are able to do that, then you are able to uh, communicate in any form, because this is, to me, for me at least, the ability to write or a written communication is one of the highest form of communication to me, right? Because it's not easy to write, as most of you know, as even I know, it's not easy actually. Even for me, I find it very difficult to write, even more so academic paper. So congratulations on participating in this, and we hope that you are able to complete and submit your paper, right? How should we? How should a quality project you encountered before? Okay, now you want us to give you examples. Again, please look at the modules. There are certain ideas that we have given you, right? You can use those ideas. We do not want to give you past participants' ideas, right? But if you really want, you can go to the YIJ journal, and the 16 papers already been uploaded. These are good papers that has already been uploaded in the YIJ website. So please go to the YIJ website, register yourself, and download those articles or papers and read it for yourself. What are the kind of ideas? This thing. So I do not want to make it too easy for you. This your questions are already available. Please go and get them. Right. I don't want to make it too easy, lah. Okay. How do we describe experiment process evidence in the short article? Again, as I said, your experiments can be done in a let's say you're doing an experiment, right? As part of your evidence, you can do it in a step-by-step format. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Your methodology, and keep it short, lah. Keep the sentence short and straight to the point. You don't need to go beat around the bush, so to speak, right? You can do that, right? And there was another question on what about the hype? Do I need to use, let's say some jargons, economic terms or economic concepts or even scientific concepts and whatnot in your solution? Do I need to explain that? Yes, you do need to mention about the different economic principles that you're using or scientific principles that you're using, but you don't have to explain it too deeply, right? So you can just say in my solution, it uses, let's say, the third law of Newton law, which says for every action there's an equal but opposite reaction. That's it, right? You don't have to go in depth explaining what the third law of Newton is, right? You can just say this is it, right? And then you can reference it. You can say to know more about this, you can reference, or you don't even need to say to know more about this third law of Newton. You can just put a reference there, and then the person that's reading your article or judging your article knows that you have read the background information about the economic principles that you have used. Okay. Now, let me look at the next question. At what stage of the impact should our project achieve? Now, uh, of course, there are a lot of things. You there is you've only got 5 pages, right? So you are not going to solve the world's problem or solve something in this thing. You're going to suggest, you're going to focus, and then certain solutions require a long process, and you can mention just the first part. The first part. This is where you start, and this is where you end. You don't have to show all the way to the end, right? You said this is your component. Your paper is talking about this particular component in a bigger distinct. And when that's the case, so that means your solution is not fully complete yet. You are just explaining in your paper of one part of the solution. You can then, at the end of the paper, you can mention further work that needs to be done, right? So let's say this is the component, you have mentioned this component. You can say, okay, this is what we have done and this is what we have showed. But now what needs to be done to get the full solution is you need to do this study, and this study, and this study, right? Let's say there's 5 more steps to get to the solution, right? And this is the basis of scientific or paper writing, even in economics, in any field, right? One paper doesn't give the full solution. One paper only gives part of the solution. So to get a full solution, you may need to combine 20 or 30 papers, So this is even in modern professional academic writing, that is the scenario, right? So you don't have to give the full solution all the way to the end, right? You can give your component, a small component, okay? Right. So I think that's most of the questions there. Let me look at some of the other questions. There's something on scoring and filtering. I already mentioned the logical flow and all that kind of stuff must be there. Now, question on why the paper writing competition is only focusing on these 3 particular topics: economics, entrepreneurship, and livelihood, is because this paper writing competition is about these 3 aspects. So we have had a previous one before this. We had one on education. We had one on, post-COVID on education. Then we did another one post-COVID on mental health and social well-being. This current one is on post-COVID entrepreneurship, livelihood, and economics, right? This is the one that you are participating in. After this is completed, we are hoping to do the final one in this series of building a better world post-COVID-19, and we'll be focusing on ecology and environment, right? So as I said, this particular competition is focusing on this topic. So if you guys you're passionate about environment and stuff like that, you can still participate in the next competition, right? Or if you want to write a paper outside of this, you can also do what do you call? You can also write a paper and then submit to the journal to be published, but it won't be part of the competition. Right? How far does ASTI play a role in helping students develop their talents, ideas, producing innovation, all that? Now, this one, we do some coaching. So let's say you have an idea and you want to develop your idea further. You can send us an email and we can try to put you in touch with some of our volunteers. Like I'm a volunteer, I'm a chemical engineer by training. We got other scientists, we even got economists, we got lawyers, we got CEOs, all these are our volunteers. So if you have an idea and you want to develop it further, we can then try to find you a coach to develop your idea. So that if you find one, then we will put you in touch with them, and then you can develop your idea further, right? What is the relevancy of organizing ASTI journals towards targeted students. I think I've already answered that. It's basically to build your discipline in paper writing. So I've got a last set of questions here. What is the criteria components evaluated in writing? I've already mentioned language, problem statement, and so on. Will the presentation be held online? So based on your papers, some of you will be shortlisted and invited for an online Viva, right? So it will be online, right? It won't be physical because we got some papers from Philippines, other countries as well. So doing it physically would be too expensive. And of course, online is much more convenient. So it'll be online, right? What are the possible penalties for the participants? Okay, now these penalties, don't worry too much about penalties. As I said, focus on your problem statement, solution, all that. But there is one major penalty, right? Which is plagiarism. Now, if your paper or your writing was just cut and paste, right? And we do have the software, right, to check for this, right? I will not tell you what is the percentage of plagiarism we allow, but it's quite low. So make sure everything that you write, even something that you read, even in your literature review, let's say you have a small literature review. I say it won't be a lot long. It's only 5 pages, right? Your paper. So your literature review will be at most half to 1 page, right? Even there, do not cut and paste. Even in the literature review, say such and such say this, right? If you are going to cut and paste, you have to italize it and then put it in bracket, right? Saying that you took it verbatim. Verbatim is cut and paste law, right? We want you to read the literature and then tell us what you think about the literature, right? So that is what we are looking for insofar as literature review is concerned. So whatever you do, do not plagiarize. That will cost you to be disqualified. Right? That's the biggest thing, right? Other than that, the judges are more lenient. They will be willing to, let's say you make small mistakes here and there, they would be willing to, uh, forgive you or forgive the small mistake, like very small grammatical errors, which doesn't impose the understanding, doesn't have a problem, because sometimes your grammatical error is so big that when a reader is reading the question, the reader cannot understand what you are trying to say because the grammar is so far off. So as long as minor grammar mistakes and all that, the judges will be, and they can understand what you're trying to say, then I think the judges will be more lenient in that aspect, right? So with that, I think I've already got all the questions so far. If you do have other questions, please do write to us, and we will reply your questions in a written format. So you write to us, and then we will reply it in the same way. So anyway, I think that's all I have for you guys today, and we do hope that you are able to complete this task of writing a paper in your journey towards finding solutions and living a better world behind for the next generation. Thank you, guys. Bye.